Good evening. This is not my first time to Mexico City. I love Mexico. And I was thinking, what should I start with? How will I start this conference? And I decided to start from the beginning, from the year of 2000, when the second Intifada broke out in Israel. And when the second Intifada broke out in Israel, it was in September 2000, Israel called to a special military call-up. 2 soldiers were called to their base in Beit El. One was about to become a father. The other was a father of 3 young children. They drove their car to their base, but they didn't know their way so well. They made a little mistake that happened to be the mistake of their life. They made a wrong turn to the city of Ramallah. In Ramallah, they were pulled out of their car. They brought to the police station in town. Very quickly, the rumor was spread that there are 2 Israeli soldiers arrested in the Palestinian police station. The mob began to arrive. They demanded the policemen to bring down the 2 soldiers. They wanted to lynch them. But the Palestinian policemen refused. Instead, they did the work for the mob. They used any tool they found in the police station. Metal poles, sticks, knives, and guns. And for half an hour, they were stabbing and beating the soldier to death. But the mob demanded blood. So they took one of the soldiers, the one who was about to become a father, and threw his body from the 2nd floor into the crowd. Do you remember the video? Yes. Do you remember the pictures of the bloody hands of the terrorists from the window? That was the case that we all watched on CNN. That was the picture that we all remember. We were young lawyers when it happened. I finished law school. I went to Bar-Ilan University. My colleagues went to Hebrew University, Tel Aviv University. And we thought that in any other country in the world, somebody would have to pay for this horrible lynching. In any other country in the world, the police and the state would be found responsible for this murder. In this case, the Palestinian police and the Palestinian Authority had to pay for the lynching case. The problem was that nobody sued the Palestinian Authority before. Nobody ever brought the Palestinian Authority into a court of law. We decided that we are going to do it. We filed a lawsuit against the Palestinian Authority in the District Court of Jerusalem, and we filed other cases against those who sent the terrorists to kill us, against Hamas, Islamic Jihad, PLO, the Palestinian Authority, and countries like Iran, like Syria, that send the terrorists, that finance the terrorists, that make sure that more and more Jewish blood will be lost. And after 2 years, we started winning in court. We won decisions in our favors. We won judgments for hundreds of millions of dollars. We won unprecedented decisions. So we were approached by a special unit of the Mossad called Harpoon, a unit that tracked terror funding. It was headed by the legendary head of the Mossad, Meir Dagan, and its sole goal was to go after the money that goes to fund the terrorism. And they came to us and said, perhaps they can collaborate with us, because in the course of their different operations, they accumulated so many evidence against those who make the money move from Syria, from United States, from Europe, to the hands of the Palestinian terror organizations in the West Bank and Gaza, the banks. They asked us, If we can go after those banks and facilitate these transactions. We couldn't do it as private lawyers anymore. We established Shurat HaDin, a non-for-profit organization, to take these cases and file them in courts around the world. Today we're representing hundreds of terror victims in lawsuits and legal actions against Hamas, Islamic Jihad, PLO, against the Palestinian Authority, Iran, Syria, North Korea, against Arab banks, European banks, Chinese banks, Lebanese banks, and recently against the social media networks, against Facebook, Google, Twitter, fighting terrorism in court. I will tell you about a portion of these cases. Ella Abu Qasis was 17 years old when she was walking one day with her brother, 15 years old, coming back from Bnei Akiva in Sderot, when the red alert went on. This is the alarm that goes on when the missiles are falling from Gaza. In Tel Aviv, you have 90 seconds to find a shelter. In Ashdod, which is a little bit southern than Tel Aviv, you have 60 seconds to find a shelter. In Sderot, you have 15 seconds to find a shelter. She was walking down the street, there was a bare street, there was no building, no bus to hide underneath them. So the only thing that went into her mind was to protect her brother. He was 15 years old. She fell over her brother, she covered him. The missile fell right near their heads. Many shrapnels went into their both heads. She fought for 7 days of her life in the hospital. She died. Her brother is disabled for life. We were asked if we can file a lawsuit against a major bank that provided financial services to Hamas at the time. We agreed. We filed a case in the federal court in New York, and we recently won. The father of Ella Abu Qasis called me up. He said, "Thank you for letting me fight back. Thank you for getting me my integrity back. I feel I'm no longer a victim." And this is what these cases do. No money can bring back life, but money gives a measure of justice, a measure of closure to the terror victims. And then we went on and filed lawsuits more and more against countries that support terrorism, against Iran, North Korea, and Syria. These countries do not defend themselves. Every time Hamas or Islamic Jihad or Hezbollah are carrying out attacks, you can file lawsuits against these countries, and you usually get judgments against them for hundreds of millions of dollars. Our goal is to enforce this judgment. Our goal is to get money to the terror victims. So we go and enforce our judgments. We found bank accounts, we found real estate, we found buildings and assets that belong to these countries. We found contracts that belong to these countries. We take our judgments and collect these assets against them. We found bank accounts that belong to the Iranian government. It was frozen in the United States. We had a big fight with the State Department. We were able to receive the money, give it to our terror victims. When Boeing signed a deal with Iran to sell them 80 aircrafts for $17 billion, we took our judgment, we put a lien on the deal in the court in Chicago. We said, we have a judgment against Iran. We are entitled to the Iranian money that will go in this deal, or to the aircrafts. Or Lufthansa that flies to Tehran, they pay money to the Iranian government each time they land their planes in Iran. We put a lien against Lufthansa, we demand the money to be paid to the terror victims. Oil tankers that belong to Iran or North Korea, we go and enforce our judgments. And indeed, in the course of our work, we're able to receive billions of dollars in judgments, and we are able to collect hundreds of millions of dollars that went to the hands of the terror victims. So you wonder what happened to the case of the lynching of the two soldiers. This case was filed at the beginning of the Intifada. And along with this case, we filed other cases against the Palestinian Authority. the court, the District Court of Jerusalem, decided that they are going to unify all these cases and sit and deal with them. And a couple of months ago, we won a judgment against the Palestinian Authority. The court came and said that the Palestinian Authority gave material support to the terror organizations during the Intifada. They gave them weapons, they gave them money, they gave them safe haven, they instructed them, they directed them, they encouraged them to go and kill Israelis, and found them liable, responsible for these attacks. Now we're going into the damages. And the damages, I estimate, will be $500 million. And when we win this judgment, we're going to collect it. We're going to go after the money that Israel collects for the Palestinian Authority. This is tax money that Israel is collecting every month, $150 million a month. We're going to take this money and give it to the terror victims. Instead of the Palestinian Palestinian Authority paying money to the terrorists, the prisoners who are sitting in the Israeli jail, they will pay to the terror victims. And also in the United States, we are able to win cases against the Palestinian Authority, judgments that we are collecting now. But I want to tell you about our recent cases, which are against the social media. If you were walking in Jerusalem in October 2015, you would not dare to walk the streets without looking back that somebody follows you with a knife. Hundreds of stabbing attacks happened in Israel since then. Many people got killed, a lot of people got injured. If you look at the perpetrators, if you look at those who take the knife and stab, you will see that they are very young people. 15 years old, 16 years old, teenagers. And you wonder what brings these teenagers to go and kill Jews? What drives them to go to the mother's kitchen, grab a knife, and go and stab a Jew, knowing that at the end of the day they might get killed or spend the rest of their life in jail? And you realize that this is the incitement to kill. But the incitement in previous intifadas used to take place in town squares, in mosques. If you happen to be there, you would listen, you would get angry, and you go and kill. Today, it comes to your house. Today, it's on your PC, it's on your iPhone, it's in your social media. Hundreds of posts calling to kill Israelis, videos illustrating how to kill, how to stab, where to push the knife, how to twist the knife, what poison to put on the knife before you go and stab. And after they go and stab, these terrorists get to their Facebook page a lot of encouragements, a lot of endorsements. They become heroes. Israel has been trying to fight the social media. Prime Minister Netanyahu sent his ministers to meet with officials of Facebook, asking them to turn this incitement down, but Facebook refused. Facebook said that they are a neutral bulletin board. They are not involved with the content, they are not involved with the users, and they are not taking a side in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. We brought a case against Facebook in New York, and Facebook filed a motion to dismiss. They said they were immune according to the Communication Decency Act. This is a law from 1996 that Congress legislated in order to keep the internet open. It grants blanket immunity to social media networks for any content that anyone put on their websites. And we know we have a problem because this immunity is a general one. There are no exceptions whatsoever. So we're looking to see if there is something that Facebook could not be immune from, and I believe we found it. It's aiding and abetting terrorism. In the United States, no American company is allowed to provide any sort of services to designate a terror organization. Bank is not allowed to open bank account to a designated organization. Facebook is not allowed Hamas to open a page on their social media. Because Hamas is using Facebook as a tool that they never had before and cannot do without. They send messages that teach the people in the West Bank how to kill. They raise funds on Facebook, they recruit people to go and join them. This is a violation of the Anti-Terrorism Act, which imposed civil and criminal liability on Facebook. So we gathered 5 families of terror victims that were killed and injured in the recent stabbing attacks in Israel, and filed a lawsuit against Facebook in New York for $1 billion. One of the victims we're presenting in the case is the family of Taylor Force. Taylor Force was 29 years old student, a West Point graduate. After his military service in Afghanistan and Iraq, he went to business school and he took a tour in Israel. In his second day, he was walking on Jaffa port and got stabbed to death by Palestinian terrorists. One of the victims is Richard Lakin. Richard Lakin was a human rights activist, the one that believed in coexistence. He took a bus in Jerusalem, and after he went on the bus, 2 terrorists from Hamas boarded the bus, shut down the door, and started shooting towards all the passengers. They injured Richard, they did not kill him, so they took a knife and finished the job. And one of the victims is Hallel Yafa Ariel. Hallel was a beautiful girl, blonde hair, blue eyes, an excellent student, a great ballet dancer. She was 13 years old. And one night she had a performance in her community, Kiryat Arba. She went with her parents, she danced. In the end of the night, they had a competition, she won, and then they all went back home to sleep. She didn't have school the next day. So she stayed in bed when her parents left to work. And then a terrorist from the nearby village entered the community. He did not do it from the front gate. He made a cut in the fence that alerted the security services. They came riding on their jeep looking for the one that infiltrated the community. They did not find him. He was hiding behind a bush. When they drove away, he got up. He went to the first house he saw. He tried to open the door was locked, so he went through the window. He wound up in Hallel's room. He was holding a knife, and he stabbed her 17 times in her bed until she died. He was 15 years old. He had a Facebook page where before he went to stab, he posted, "Death is a right, and I deserve this right." We cannot let Facebook sit in their ivory towers in Palo Alto when the blood is spilled on the street of Jerusalem. We have to find them accountable. We have to teach them that they have social responsibility and they have to take this incitement down because words can really kill. And in order not to make it an Israeli or Jewish problem, we represent victims of ISIS attacks. One from Paris, from Brussels, in lawsuits against Twitter, against Google, against YouTube, in the federal courts in the United States. Because imagine ISIS without YouTube. Imagine ISIS without these beheading videos. Who would know about ISIS? Who would even care? The cases are going on in the courts in the United States. We lost in the district court. The court accepted the allegation of Facebook that they are immune according to the Communication Decency Act. We filed an appeal, and we lost the appeal. But the Chief Justice of the Court of Appeal came out with a dissent opinion siding with us. The Chief Justice said that indeed Facebook could not be immune from terrorism. Nobody could be immune from terrorism. Facebook is not a simple bulletin board. They are involved with the users, they are involved with the content, they should be perceived as publishers. And now we are in the Supreme Court. It's up to the Supreme Court to decide what governs. The Communication Decency Act that grants blanket immunity to social media networks, or the Anti-Terrorism Act that came to safeguard the life of innocent people in the United States and around the world. A law that prevents anyone from providing any sort of material support to terrorism. I believe we win the case. I believe that we will teach the social media networks not to be involved with terrorism. That they have to make sure that they are terror-free entities, because there should be zero tolerance to terrorism on the internet. And when Israel's enemies realize that they cannot win us militarily, and despite the wars they launch against us and the wave of terrorism they unleashed against us, we are still here. They started to use different type of weapon, a non-conventional one, but a very devastating one. It's called BDS and lawfare. They call companies from all over the world, they call universities, students, universities, to go and boycott Israel, to sanction it, and to invest from it. They want to promote the solution that they see to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It's a not two-state solution. It's a one-state solution, a Palestinian state. They call all the refugees from 1948, there were 600,000 of them back then, today there are 5 million, to come and settle back in Israel under the slogan, let demography win. They believe that by isolating Israel, by boycotting Israel, by comparing Israel to an apartheid state, they will reach their goal and they will exchange the Jewish state with a Palestinian one. And we are fighting back. One of our recent cases was a case against Airbnb. Airbnb decided that they are going to delist Jewish homes in Judea and Samaria from their website. They declare that they no longer want to work in occupied territories, and therefore whoever owns houses in Judea and Samaria will no longer be listed on their website. But they didn't delist the houses that are owned by Palestinians or Christians or Muslims, just the Jews. And they did not delist themselves from other occupied territories in the world, like Northern Sahara, Northern Cyprus, like Western Sahara, like Georgia. So we went and filed a lawsuit against Airbnb in Delaware, where they are incorporated, based on the Fair Housing Law. This is a law in the United States that obligates equality when it comes into housing and prohibits any discrimination based on religion, on nationality, on gender. We came and said that Airbnb discriminates against the Jews based on their religion. We filed a lawsuit, and after 3 months, Airbnb came to us and asked to settle the case out of court. We reached a settlement agreement with them where they tracked back their policy and they announced that they no longer are going to delist Jewish homes from their website. It was a great defeat to the BDS movement. Another case we were involved with is a case against Lord. Do you know Lord? You do, the singer Lord? I didn't know her. Apparently she's a very famous singer. She's from New Zealand. And she announced that she is coming to Israel in the course of a concert that she's taking upon herself, international concert, going to visit 65 countries. then she got a letter, an open letter on the internet from two BDS activists, also from New Zealand, one Jewish, one Palestinian. They told her that Israel is an apartheid state, that Israel violates the Palestinians' rights, and she should not come to Israel. She should boycott Israel. Lord, who's a young singer, wrote back in her Twitter account that she didn't know, that she was not familiar with the facts, and she indeed going to boycott Israel. She's going to cancel the concert. In Israel we have a law. The law says that anyone who called to boycott Israel, and as a result of it, someone really boycott Israel, caused the harm, the one who got harmed have a right to sue. You never can use this law because you can never prove that someone who called to boycott Israel caused somebody else to boycott the country and cause a damage until this case. In this case, we could have proved that the BDS activists from New Zealand that called Lord to boycott Israel caused Lord to cancel the concert. And as a result of this, a damage occurred. Who got harmed? The producer that invited Lord to come to the concert got his money back. The concert was cancelled. He got refund for any means or investment he put in this concert. Who else got harmed? The ticket holders. The ones who bought tickets to the concert and now are deeply disappointed. But they also got their money back. They also got a refund. But they also got emotional distress. So we can sue the BDS activists on behalf of people that bought tickets to the concert. Now we're looking for these people. I was talking about it on my Shabbos table with my family, and my daughter, who was 17 at the time, said that her friends bought tickets to the concert and they are crushed by canceling this concert. So we got these girls, 3 girls, to file a lawsuit against the BDS activists in New Zealand. We filed a lawsuit. The BDS activists went underground. For 3 months we couldn't find them. We hired a private investigator to go and look where they are. We finally found them, we served them with a lawsuit, and then they had 60 days to come to court to file a defense. They didn't come to court, and the court gave us a judgment against them. The court said that they are going to impose an Israeli law on BDS activists from New Zealand because this is the way for the Israeli state to protect itself. And they have jurisdiction because the letter that the BDS activists published was on the internet. So it's global, Israel has jurisdiction. They gave us a judgment against them for $15,000. There is no treaty between Israel and New Zealand, so I don't know if we can enforce the judgment in New Zealand, but the judgment is good for 25 years. So one day they will decide to come and visit their relatives in Israel or in the Palestinian Authority. We'll eventually catch them. But this wasn't the reason why we filed the lawsuit. We filed the lawsuit to warn BDS activists that one day they will have to pay personally for their call to boycott Israel. And lawfare. In 2012, the Palestinian Authority went to the UN and upgraded their status to an observer state. It doesn't have any meaning. There is no such a creature, an observer state. It doesn't give you any influence or power in the UN or among the nations. It gives you one and only one thing: the ability to sign the Rome Treaty and join the International Criminal Court. And indeed, Since then, the Palestinian Authority threatened Israel that if they don't receive their demands through a negotiation, they will go to the International Criminal Court and indict Israel for war crimes. They have two allegations. One, that Israel using an excessive force against the Palestinians in the different operations. And second, that Israel built settlements in Judea and Samaria, which is a violation of the international law. We saw this and we realized that if the Palestinians become members in the court, they not only be plaintiffs, but they will be defendants themselves. Because the jurisdiction of the court goes both ways. It's a two-side street. But we did not believe that the Palestinian Authority has any basis to join the court. They are not a state. Only states can join the International Criminal Court. But because we wanted to file counter lawsuits against the leaders of the Palestinian Authority, we were looking for other grounds who went into the jurisdiction of the court, and we found it. Apparently, the leaders of Hamas, the leaders of the Fatah organization, or the Palestinian Authority are Jordanian citizens, and Jordan is a state member in the court from day one. So we have a right to go and file worker complaints against the leaders of the Palestinian Authority. And we did it through the whole time of the Intifada. We came and said suicide bombing, drive-by shooting, ambushes, killing people on a daily basis for years and years and years, shooting thousands of missiles towards populated areas is a crime against humanity. It's called genocide. We filed these lawsuits. They are sitting in the court to the day that the Palestinian Authority will be accepted as a member in the International Criminal Court, and the court will want to go and investigate the conflict. They won't deal only with the complaints of the Palestinians against Israel, but the complaints of the Israelis against the Palestinians. The second argument is a little bit more complicated. The Palestinians claim that by building settlements in Judea and Samaria, Israel violated the international law because the Geneva Convention prohibits moving population into occupied territory. The Geneva Convention, to remind we all, was enacted after World War II, after Nazi Germany took over parts of Eastern Europe and did a massive transfer of its population to settle in these areas. So Section 49 of the Geneva Convention says that an occupying country is not allowed to transfer its population to sit in occupied territories that they conquered. Palestinians come and say, Israel, by building settlements and moving Israelis to live in Judea and Samaria, violates Section 49 of the Geneva Convention. Israel has a lot of defense arguments. The main one is that the territories are not occupied. In order to occupy a territory, you have to take it from someone who owns it. And nobody owns Judea and Samaria. The last to have any ownership rights on it were the Turks under the Ottoman Empire. But then in World War I, Britain came, took over this land, Jordan and Israel. They didn't get ownership. They get a mandate from the UN, from the National Leagues, to come and to administrate the territories. But they did not own the land. And after 25 years, they left. In 1948, they just escaped from this area and they let the sides to fight against each other, the Arabs and the Jews, over this piece of land. The war broke out, the Independence War. It lasted a year and a half, and in the end, it stopped in a ceasefire where the parties drew a line of the border of the ceasefire, where the parties stopped. The line was drawn in a green ink, and this is why it's called the Green Line, but it didn't have any political meaning. It just mentioned and drew where the Jordanian and the Arab leagues stopped versus where the Jews stopped. But then Jordan, who saw that there is a very nice piece of land attached to its border, is free, went and annexed it. It even gave them a name, the West Bank. But nobody recognizes annexation. Even the Arab League was furious at Jordan for taking this unilateral step. So in 1967, when Israel took control over these territories in the 6 Days War, it was no one land. So the most we can tell about these territories is that are disputed territories, but they are not occupied. However, we know the position of Europe about these territories. We know the International Court of Justice ruling considered these territories to be occupied. We know the Security Council resolution declaring that working these territories is a war crime. And therefore, if the Palestinians go and file a war complaint against Israel based on the allegation of the settlement, Israel will lose. And this will be a game changer. So we are thinking what we can do, and we realize that there are other areas in the world that are considered to be occupied. Turkey occupies northern Cyprus, Morocco occupies Western Sahara, Russia occupies Georgia. So we went and filed a war complaint against Turkey for occupying northern Cyprus. We found a human rights organization from Turkey and to allow to do that. And on 35-page long brief, we wrote exactly what Turkey is doing in northern Cyprus. How they build universities, how they build hospitals, how they give tax incentives to the residents to come and settle in northern Cyprus. Exactly what Israel is doing in the West Bank. The court will not indict Turkey. Turkey is too dear to Europe. The court might come and say, we figured, that it's a conflict for the countries to solve it among each others. They are not getting involved. It's not under their jurisdiction. So when the Palestinians will come and file their war complaint against Israel, the hands of the court will be tied. There will be a ruling saying that the court is not getting involved in these sort of conflicts. 2 months ago, the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court decided that she is going to investigate Israel for war crimes. Based on what? Based on these two allegations. IDF soldiers using excessive force against Palestinians and the issue of the settlements. Israel is not going to the International Criminal Court. They don't recognize the court. They know how biased the court is. They are not accepting any judgment from this court. They ask us to come and represent the Israeli interests in court. We are there fighting back. We are there to claim and argue before the court that the Palestinian Authority is not a state. They have no authority to go into the court. The court has no jurisdiction. And if they really want to come and investigate this conflict, they should go after the real war criminals. The one who really kill innocent people on a daily basis. The head of the Fatah, the head of Hamas, the head of the Palestinian Authority. Those who give money to the terrorists to go and kill Jews. Those who award them for killing Jews. Those who encourage terrorism, not Israel. This is a portion of the cases we're handling in Israel, United States, Europe, and Canada. Every day we get more and more calls from more and more terror victims who want to fight back, who are seeking justice, who more than anything else in the world don't want to be victims anymore. And every day we find more and more challenges that the Jewish state is facing, where the answer to these challenges is in the legal arena. I was sitting with some of you a couple of minutes before, and I told about our new project, preparing to the next Lebanese war. Because in the next war, Hezbollah has capabilities to shoot 1,500 missiles into Israel. They are long-range missiles, they are accurate missiles. If Hezbollah decides to target a building in Tel Aviv, which has 30 floors, they will be able to take it down. And the IDF will have to retaliate, they will have to shoot back towards the launchers and the missiles, who are hidden, you know where? Among civilians. In houses, in hospitals, in kindergartens, in South Lebanon. And then there will be a lot of casualties in the Lebanese side. So when Israelis get killed, the world keeps silent. But when the Lebanese will get killed, the world will shout and scream and put pressure on Israel to stop the war. And Israel does not want to stop the war. Israel wanted to be the last war against Hezbollah. There are 150,000 missiles hidden among civilians that Israel is determined to clear out if there will be a war. So in order to push back the pressure from the international community, they asked us to launch a legal campaign to bring the awareness for the situation, to alert the international community right now that there are missiles and launchers hidden among civilians in South Lebanon, that thousands, if not tens of thousands of Lebanese civilians are sitting ducks, that when this war starts, they all will be killed. And if the international community cares about these people, the time to act is now. This is the legal campaign. We're filing a war complaint against Hezbollah in the International Criminal Court because right now hiding missiles and launching among civilians is a crime against humanity. Don't wait, we tell the judges, until there will be a catastrophe. Don't wait until there will be a genocide. Act now. We'll continue fighting our legal battles around the world, because this is our way to fight terrorism. This is our way to fight on behalf of the Jewish state. This is our way to make sure that we are living safely in our country. And we want to live safely in our country. We want to shop in our malls, to sit in our cafes. We want to ride our buses, to walk on the streets. We want to live peacefully in the state of Israel. It's our country and the only one. And indeed, it will be a war, it will be a battle, it will be an uphill combat. But in the end, we are going to win because we are fighting for our national survival. We are going to tell the entire world that 75 years after the Holocaust, there is a price to Jewish blood, that nobody can kill Jews and go without pay, that the state of Israel that was built 72 years ago is here forever. And we are going to protect it, the civilians in these countries. Remember, private people build the state of Israel. Private people have to keep it safe. Thank you very much.